Okay. Thank you for So I'm going to introduce you first, just briefly, cognition, metacognition, and then the overview of the talk today. It's important in this group to clarify what I mean when I say metacognition, because metacognition means different things for different people, it turned out. So when we talk about learning, traditional cognitive psychology talks, when in cognitive psychology they talk about learning, they talk about putting things into memory. Okay? It's not all the self-regulated learning that we have in mind, it's just transferring information from an outside source into our memory system. Okay? They will kill me if they hear me, but this is the essence. So in basic psychology course and the introduction to cognition, they talk about memory as learning, okay? So information is there and it should be well ordered in the memory and ready to be retrieved whenever we need. Okay. The metacognitive research started with these memory people who talk about list of words that should be memorized and put into memory, okay? Without any connection, they controlled for associations. Associations are noise, so they just reduce the associations as much as possible, and they talk about monitoring at the item level, at the word level. When you memorize a list of words, each word, you monitor the chance that you will remember it when you will ask to retrieve either cued or uncued memory tasks, okay? So they talk about monitoring that hides from you whatever you know. You don't really know what you know what you think you know, and this is the monitoring, okay? So what we actually have access to is the monitoring at the very itemized manner for each word, for each item that we learn. Okay. This is not what I meant. This monitoring, which covers, we don't know what we know only the monitoring, and this guides our decisions. And then we get to self-regulated learning, because now we have the monitoring that guides the decisions, and these decisions were at the beginning, I'm talking about Nelson and Naren's 1990, this is the kickoff of the metacognitive research, they talk about continue or stopping studying. That's it. When you memorize a word, you decide whether to allocate more time to that word or move to the next one. This is the kind of self-regulated learning they had in mind. Okay, this is important as a background and a context. Now I do a huge leap, 30 years forward, okay, and talk about the metacognitive processes that take place in parallel to what we do now, in each and every moment, not reflective, not planning, but currently, when I'm doing each and every task item, when I'm facing each and every task item, I all the time monitor myself and decide what to do. Okay. Experimental paradigm. When I talk about problem solving, you will see the entire talk is about problem solving. Experimental paradigm typically is done on the computer. Typically, we have an empty screen at the beginning, a present button. The participants press the present button. Then we start a clock, count milliseconds, present the problem, let them answer the problem, and press the continue button, and then we stop the stopwatch of counting how many milliseconds they invested. Okay? It can be minutes, but it can be milliseconds, depends on the task. Here, this example is the task compound remote associates. You're given 3 words. Your task is to find the 4th word, which generates a compound word with each of the 3. What is the answer?
Cheese.
Cheese. Cake is given. Okay, cheese. So we have cottage cheese, Swiss cheese, and cheesecake. Okay, this is an answer. And then they press continue, and we measure success rate, of course. There is only one solution, always well-defined problems. There is a success rate. And we measure, as I mentioned, the response time between the present button and the continue button. And then we ask for confidence. How confident are you that this solution is correct? Okay? This is the case of confidence. This is the final confidence after you finish solving the problem. Okay. So in this, the response time indicates on effort regulation in our terms, and confidence is the monitoring of our chance of success. And then after that, I can ask more questions, more self-regulated learning. For example, now I write a very large proposal with the option to say after you answer that you prefer to submit or prefer to say I don't know. And this is a controlled decision. With these 3 measures, this is the data I work with. So each participant had like 30 items like this. And then I have data for very robust within subject analysis. I can manipulate the words, I can manipulate the instructions, I can manipulate adding don't know or not. I can manipulate many things, and always the measures are these 3. And I'm interested in my research, I will not talk today about it, about all pairs of associations. Success rate to response time gives me efficiency. How many correct solutions are done per minute of work? Confidence and success rate can give me overconfidence, can give me resolution, if you know how much people differentiate between correct and wrong solutions. And I'm in the recent years are mostly focused here at the association between final confidence and response time. And this is the effort regulation. When you talk about effort regulation, I have in mind final confidence and response time and association between them. Okay? Because people stop investing effort because of a certain level of confidence.
Did you also measure how much time they needed or they took to answer the last question, how sure they were?
I have the data. I don't have theory about it. So if you have a theory, I have huge amounts of data. I measure it, but I don't have any theory, so I don't do anything with it.
So your theory is the longer their response time, you expect them to be less confident, or the other way around?
It's complicated. I don't want to get into it. It's very, very, very complicated. It's a different talk.
Yeah, because I also can reason.
Overall, there is a negative correlation between them. This is the brief answer. The length, I can give a whole week workshop about the association between confidence and. Okay. Notably and importantly for this group is that you can add measures of response time and confidence or any other metacognitive judgment to most of the tasks that you study anyway. And in most cases, it will not make a difference to the task. So I encourage all of you to just measure these additional measures in addition to success rate. If there is a correct solution to the task you study anyway, just try to add response time and or one of them also is enough, or confidence. It's easy. It's very, very easy. Okay? And then you can elaborate on the analysis that you do much more and understand the process much more. I would like to bring your attention the Meta Reasoning website and the community. We are a group of researchers who study the metacognitive aspects of reasoning. We have a website. I maintain the website. We have a mailing list. You are all invited to write to me if you would like to join the mailing list. I share there papers and conferences and calls for postdocs and all this. And importantly, since September 1st till December 31st, we have a group in Jerusalem. 11 researchers will sit in Jerusalem together from all around the world, leading researchers, and we are going to develop the meta-reasoning research. And toward the end of the stay, we have a conference, and you are all invited to submit. The submission deadline is July, the end of July. And the website is now just under construction, but the information will be there. And if you join the mailing list, you will get the call for the abstract. So I just encourage you to join at least the mailing list. And during the group stay in Jerusalem, we will open in Zoom most of the sessions. So you are also invited to join. Okay, what I'm going to talk about now is how to choose a task in which you would like to discover biases. In confidence, I will talk about confidence, but there are additional judgments. We can talk about it as well. I will go briefly about self-assessments. If anybody watched the video that I sent, it's nice, then you know more about it. If you didn't watch it, it's fine. We will go briefly over it. And then I will elaborate on how to examine predicted biases, that you hypothesize that there is a bias, and how to discover new biasing factors in a more efficient brute force manner in exploration. I hope I will have time for all of this. Any questions so far? Pick a task. I encourage each two that sit together or change places. I'm going to present several tasks that I have data about. I encourage you to pick a task and think about cues, biases, all this while you listen to me. And I want you to whisper to one another what you think about. So try to work in pairs, or really in pairs, choose a task or switch the places to have a common task that the two of you can talk about. Okay?
The numbers to be again?
I'm going to present each one of them. I already presented this one, and I'm going to present these and two more after them. Okay, analogies. Here, this one is a verbal task that is based on the semantic network. Okay? The phrases that you know should be your mother tongue language. Okay. And analogies, you're given two words. It's a multiple choice task. And you should find the pair of words that allow the same or support the same association like this one. Again, confidence response time, very easy to correct. So this is the task is a multiple choice one. Okay, you try to solve. It's not important to solve. Okay, this is the task. Is it clear? So it's verbal. It's based on the semantic network again. But the fact that it's a multiple choice structure helps us with response time interpretation, because most of the time is thinking, pure thinking, rather than typing. which is a problem here. I have a version of this one with a multiple choice.
What are the answers?
I don't want to get to it. Okay, I would like to focus on the methodology. So here, response time involves typing the word. So you have a shorter word, a longer word. It makes noise with the response time measure. Here, when it's a multiple choice task, it's cleaner. Okay. Cognitive reflection test. This is a set of, I have 12 problems, and I collected from other studies some more. We have 17 problems that are verbal. They are presented verbally, but they require some math or knowledge or logic thinking. So the thinking is math type, but the presentation is verbal. Okay. Again, this one has both multiple choice version and an open version. But here it's numbers, it's short numbers, so the typing is not the problem. It's just an open-ended. Number series is the task that you are presented with some numbers and you should continue. This also can be open-ended or multiple choice. I don't have data for this task yet, but I'm in the process of developing a task. Yeah. So now we move to math, to figures, numbers. And now I go to non-verbal tasks, which is important for me in my recent research. In the team with Yael and with Emily and Katerina and Vincent, we did mental rotation. So this is the data that we have now of mental rotation. I need to explain. It's a multiple choice test format, and you should say which of the option is exactly as the given one at the left. Raven matrices. Here I have data, I have the task, but if you want to conduct new studies, you have to get permission. No, but for the existing data I have, you can take it and work with it. Here the task is to find the rules in the lines and in the columns, and it's a multiple choice with 8 options. Questions about these tasks before I go to 2 more tasks? Okay, 2 more. These now I present 2 tasks that I developed, novel tasks. It's in a paper under review now, so please keep it in our group for now. It was based originally, just a minute, I have it to check something. Okay. So I took the idea of the task from a paper from Israeli educational researchers. They invented the first version, and then I developed it to be more complex, more challenging. The idea here is that you are presented with 2 shapes. The task is to decide whether the left or the right have a longer perimeter, the line that is surrounding the shape here, which is the correct one, which is longer, or equal. I don't know. The right one. The right one is longer. Why? Just seems to be.
I tried to count if there were squares, mini squares, there would be.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, this is a very misleading task. This one is correct. This is the right one. But we have another one, which is longer here. Counting.
right?
Why?
Yeah, I'm just also trying to count the number of squares inside and how many there are.
Mhm.
How many ones.
Any other thought? Okay, it's all right. But people mislead these missing cubes to lengthen the perimeter, but they do not. So the perimeter of this shape is the same like the regular rectangular. So this is a misleading item, an example of one. The success rate in this task, in the version that I developed, is about 50%. Okay, it's quite challenging. And the last one.
Have you calculated how misleading it is? The 40% misleading? So this is
Because
just the errors.
I designed the items to have, I have more details about it later, but I designed the items to have different perimeters with the same area.
Yeah.
The area is misleading.
Yeah.
So
you mean 40% of the tasks is misleading?
yes,
40% of these times. Oh, okay.
I define them in advance
Yeah.
to have a mismatch between the side of the side which has the larger area and the side which has the longer perimeter.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last one, again, it's my design. I base it on a game that I had as a child. The game is the Tangram. Do you know the game? Okay. It's a physical game with plastic pieces that you get these pieces, 7 pieces. You get a silhouette, and you should construct the silhouette by these plastic pieces. Okay? So I did a version based on that one. Task characteristics. Now we get to the considerations in choosing a task. I search for all of them are problem-solving tasks. They have a correct solution, well-defined correct solution that you can explain participants what it is. We can measure response time, and response time will be indicative of effort, which is central to this group. Okay, like not a lot of typing. This is not the thinking effort, for example. The metacognitive judgments that we can collect can be before starting to solve. Is it solvable? How easy it is to solve it, etc. We can ask participants during performing the task. How confident are you that you're going to solve it? And we can ask confidence at the end of the solving process. When you choose a task, you would like to maybe to have some theoretical contribution in it, either in the task or in the manipulations that you do. In this case, I study now non-verbal tasks, which is severely understudied in metacognition. Okay, so I try to come up with non-verbal tasks that can shed light on heuristic cues and biases that stem from non-verbal stimuli.
Is it because of cultural aspects that you want to study nonverbal tests?
No, just interesting. Like okay. It's relevant for engineering, for navigating, for geometry studying, etc. Just part of our life that is neglected in research. Okay, and we would like to have many items to allow within participant manipulations. Okay. So all these tasks are short. Typically, I use either lab studies or online studies up to 20 minutes of the task with several tens of items. So I have a lot of items, a lot of data to work with. All these methodological considerations are very important for this kind of research. So now pick for each pair, pick a task. those back, and the perimeter and the missing. Oh, I didn't go. Sorry.
We did not choose one yet.
Shanna, pick it for yourself. So you can think about while I talk. Okay?
For example, they in high school with parents.
Any questions?
I don't know whether it's a pro or a con, but I know that one of the second one from the most. Because I used but it was actually to show that like the majority performs that correct.
So they say
Correct answer. The correct answer is 5%. But the intuitive answer is 10. Large and there's like and well, there's a Google process there was a claim, but I was and they're not aware. So if we start thinking here, they can write in the night, first thing on the television shows that most people show some kind of error.
Okay, do you have tasks that you choose?
They are interested.
yeah.
They should sometimes they use control
Okay, good.
show that
Okay.
but we also use control. So
Did everybody pick a task?
yeah, we're going off topic now.
Okay.
Okay.
So now, given the task that you chose, I'm going to talk about identifying biases. Sophia asked me whether I talk about biases in the solving process, or Julia asked me, in the solving process itself that people err, or biases in the confidence. So I talk about both of them. And the question is whether confidence is aware for the error, reflects properly the error, and also when we don't err. So it's always both of the directions. Okay. In order to talk about biases, we should understand what we rely on when we rate our confidence. Okay. So how do people infer their confidence? The idea is that we base confidence on heuristic cues. We don't have direct access to the accuracy of the solution. We have heuristic cues that are present in the task, or we bring them with us into the situation. In order to find the factors that confidence as a metacognitive judgment in general relies on, we would like to dissociate them. So to make effects on success without affecting confidence, or the other way around. So we search for cues or factors in the task that are associated with confidence and with accuracy, in the sense that if they change confidence upwards or downwards, they would not change accuracy, or the other way around. If we change accuracy, confidence is blind to these changes, then we can dissociate the two and show that confidence doesn't look into our memory or into our solving process, but it is based on these heuristic cues that we have in mind. Okay, we will see some examples in a short while. This is a review paper I wrote for a special issue done by Igor Paishansky, we mentioned already. He invited this paper about factors affecting and biasing judgments. Those who listened to the previous talk, this was the center of the guideline of that talk. The idea here is that most research deals with experience during performing the task, but this is not the only source. Here, fluency, for example, is a prominent cue, but this is not the only source for information for confidence or whatever monitoring judgments, but there are also task characteristics and self-perception. How do we perceive ourselves? And of course, there might be interactions. In my studies, I showed many combinations of two factors, here, factor here, and factor here, and factor here. When you think about instructional design, this is central, because instructional design is here. It affects the task characteristic, and then it changes, this is my claim, it changes, it interacts with the experience-based cues. Okay? So keep in mind that if you do when you do instructional design, you actually manipulate something here, cues here, okay? So this was a brief reminder of the previous talk. And now I would like to focus on how to examine predicted biases. So we can consider one cue or multiple cues, and we will see some examples. And during me talking, please think about the task you picked and consider possible biases in those tasks, okay? When we talk about one cue, this is the typical metacognitive research about identifying factors that underlie metacognitive judgments. In memorizing, there is a lot of work that has been done. For example, biases were found about the number of appearances of the words. That if a word appeared twice with a spacing effect, it improves knowledge quite effectively, but judgment of learning typically is blind or almost blind to this change. Because judgment of learning is focused on the particular word, on the fluency of the particular word, and the fluency increases only little, while knowledge increases much more, okay? So this is an example of a bias in judgment of learning. Font size effect. People expect larger fonts to have very pronounced effect on their outcomes, while it's not the case. So this is in contradiction to this effect that is mostly on actual record. This effect is mostly on judgments of learning. Martina, would you like to respond to this? Okay. You are very actively listening. Okay. Concreteness, we remember better the concrete words. Judgments of learning typically are higher for concrete words, but not always at the same extent as the change in success rate. Emotionality, we remember more the positive words than negative emotion words, but these are abstract terms, and this is a concrete terms, and then we start to talk about interactions between the two. So these are kinds of cues that might generate a bias when we talk about memorizing. potential research. You can think in the context of memory, of additional cues and search, and you can do wonderful research if you come up with additional cues, manipulate them in the stimuli or around the stimuli or in the instructional design, and check how it affects memory and judgments of learning. This is a classic metacognitive research. Okay, when we go to our problem-solving context, in the meta-reasoning context, for example, Staufen and Babai, this is the original study I took this task from, talked about perimeter area congruency. This is what I explained, why these items are misleading, because you are asked about the perimeter, but there is the area always there at the same stimuli. And this is a congruent item because the area is larger here and the perimeter is larger here. So this is not a misleading item. While this one, you see the perimeter, when we measure the perimeter and the area, the perimeter is larger in this one, while the area is larger in that one, and then you have a mismatch. And this is a misleading item, okay? So here, a lot of questions can be asked, and it's a new task. I considered several cues in this task beyond the perimeter area congruency that they originally designed the task to test. So I encourage you to think about additional potential cues, okay, in this task or in whatever task you decide to think about. I would like to continue. We have a break in a minute, so I would like to continue one more slide, and then during the break, I will encourage you to think about your task, about one cue that might be biasing, but I will continue a little bit more, okay? 2 cues in one study. In typical research, we do 2 experiments, and we have 2 groups in 2 experiments in order to show dissociations, effects on confidence separately and on success separately. I brought here as an example, just as an example, a study that Yael Sidi led in our group. These are students in my lab. And unique contribution of this study is that the task is not well defined. The task is of a reasoning. The task is that we give an object and the participants should come up with uses, original uses to that object. And we ask them, how original do you think you are? And we told them that we are going to examine in 100 participants how often, how frequent is the idea. So we have an objective, well-defined measure within an unwell-defined task, okay? You should come up with original ideas, but then you should assess how original, how often this idea is found in a population of 100 people, okay? So we operationalize the non-well-constructed task into a well-constructed.
So objective originality is how often this idea was proposed?
This is how we define it.
Okay.
And this is what we ask them to assess. So we could compare the 2. We must be able to compare on a common ground. Okay. And then we did 2 manipulations. One manipulation affected the ideas and not the judgments of originality, and the other way around in another experiment. So we did a double dissociation effect on the judgment of originality separately from the effect on actual originality. And this is a method of thinking. If you can think about a new task, a new judgment, a new situation, and you would like to support the claim that the metacognitive judgment is not tightly associated with actual performance, this is an example for such a study. One effect, just resonance on one of the sides and the other one on the other. Is it clear? Clear enough? Not so much? Okay. So this is a double dissociation. It's an important research tool to think about. It comes from neuropsychology. In neuropsychology, when they would like to claim that there are two separated areas in the brain, then they try to find either atypical population with people who are damaged in one rather than the other and show that they perform okay with all other, but this particular area, or they try to put in the scale and just change one area and not the other one, and the same and vice versa areas in the brain. So we don't claim about areas in the brain, but we adapt this way of thinking to manipulate the judgments and the performance separately. You can think about more cues to originality or to confidence in the task. Okay, I will stop here. Please make use of the time during the coffee break to think about cues, and we will allow half an hour for this break.
And how much more time do you think you'll need after this break?
How much?
Until 5, is that okay? So from 4 to 5, 1 more hour?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
We can define
Yeah.
how much time we allow for working.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So let's think and drink coffee until 4. Okay.
bring it. Have some cues too.
Shana, it's half an hour.
Do you think it's our task?
Does anybody would like to share something about the cues, any deliberation before we continue? Everything is clear? Okay.
But also,
Can we continue? Okay, so now we get to more complex stuff. So far we talked about considering one cue in time. I hope you talked about the thorough way of considering two cues at the time, showing double dissociation. One affects confidence without accuracy and the other way around, okay? To show that confidence has a separated life than the accuracy. And now we get to considering multiple cues at once. As I mentioned, we consider the option that there are interactions between them. I have several papers about it. I now focus on the experience during task performance and consider multiple cues within each task, okay? That's stemming from the stimuli. A recent Leinbach research by Monica Undorf and colleagues examines the cue integration, they call it, how people very, very briefly can come up with a combination of considerations that involve several cues at once. And they got in this paper to 4 cues in memorizing, the cues that I mentioned before, the size, the times, the concreteness, and the emotional aspect. In one study, they mixed everything, and they showed that judgments of learning, in this case, are sensitive to all these 4 cues at once. And they talk about cue integration, which is an amazing, sophisticated process. In brief task, memorizing is a brief task. It takes like 4 seconds to memorize a word pair, in this case. And they have more recent papers about pictures. So in visual stimuli as well, multiple cues, I think they got to 5 cues in identifying pictures. So this is one aspect of considering the multiple cues. And if you think about future research that you design, you can consider individual differences, age differences, with and without attention deficits, etc., and task characteristics. You can think about instructional design, in particular, how it affects the cue integration. Does it change the balance between the cues? And I will show you the method I recently developed about examining empirically and measure the balance between the cues. They didn't talk about the balance. They talked about this, that each and every cue made a main effect. Okay? So now I turn to the last part of how to discover new biasing factors. When you just explore, you have a task, you have several ideas, you either already have data from previous experiments with confidence or other metacognitive judgments of learning, whatever, or you design a new study, but you would like in one sample very effectively to examine multiple cues. So this is the aim. I mention again, this is a paper under review. I hope it will go through quickly, but it's a challenge. So let's consider the tangam. Here, I wanted to examine what potential cues can be in the tangam. Again, we can think about many cues. For example, first, the serial order. Do people gain something from getting experience without feedback during performing the task? They did 20 items, and I wanted to know whether they improve, whether they think they improve, or maybe because there is overconfidence, typically, maybe they get more, just less overconfident, more modest in their confidence, maybe. So maybe as you go through experience with the task, there is some change. Yes.
A very brief question. What is the task again? Do I have to say whether it's possible to make them?
I didn't explain.
Okay, because this would change my thinking of it.
The original task is to build these silhouettes on the 7 pieces.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not what I did. I will explain what I did because of technical considerations. Okay? Okay. But the original task is to build these silhouettes with the 7 pieces. And in plastics. This is the original. Okay. Yeah. I now just talk about how I think about potential misleading aspects and questions, and I would like to present multiple questions at once in order to be very efficient with one study, with one sample, and I would like to consider many potential biasing factors. Okay? So one idea is serial order. We have it because we have multiple items. I expected in this case that people will improve with experience, And the question was whether confidence will reflect this improvement. On the other hand, boredom, tiredness can bring everything down. Does it bring down performance? Does it bring down confidence? I would like to explore. I don't know at this stage. Okay. Response time. Response time, we discussed it in the break. Response time is very sophisticated thing because effort regulation, we know about effort regulation. We invest more time when we're motivated. We invest less time when we give up. We invest less time when it's easy. We invest more time when we enjoy the task. It's very, very interesting response time. Does it reflect ease, fluency, complexity? What is complexity in such a task? Maybe rotation angle of these figures that I have to, the plastic pieces that I have, where maybe if I have to flip a piece. What underlies response time? It's so vague. So it can be all these. It can be whether the object is nameable. Is it easy to name the object? Is it misleading or is it helpful to name, to be able to say what I see rather than abstract silhouettes? Number of pieces, number of edges. You see that here there are less edges, let's say, than here. Here it's more spread, so this item is clear. I know what to put here. Immediately, there is a shape like this among the 7 options. So I can put it here and it gets easier. Or here. When there are more edges, the task gets easier. Does confidence reflect it? It's not clear. So instead of talking about response time, which encompasses everything, I prefer to name as much as possible the factors that I think might affect the ease of processing or complexity or fluency, okay? After that, I do include response time as well. I'm going to use a regression model. So I will see the unique contribution of response time after controlling for all those potential cues that I identify and specifically mark for each of the items. Does it require a rotation? Does it the object familiar? How many edges are there? And then response time will represent the rest of the unexplained variance. Is this clear?
Yeah, then, but response time would be sensitive enough to reflect that.
When I use regression models,
Yeah.
I see the unique contribution of each factor.
Yeah.
If I include serial order, it takes out all what is controlled by serial order. If I take those that have rotation or rotation angle, I can do it continuously. Either you need to rotate or not, binary, or a rotation angle. Okay? So you can make, and then you control for all the variation that stems from the rotation and get for response time the rest of the variation. Okay? So it's a tool to identify many, you can come up with a long list, as many as you like, and put them into a regression. And then you control for all these. And then the idea is to compare the predictive value for confidence, for success, and compare them. I will show you how I do it. And if I can come up with more potential cues, it's for the better. I can come up with a long list. If anybody knows the lens, the Brunswick lens model, it's similar in the sense that the more cues you can come up with, the better will be the prediction you have.
But are you gonna check whether the factors are significant or not? And then you don't have power issues if you add like
No,
many.
it's for the better. The more you have, more explained variance you have.
More explained variance, but like it's also harder to find like unique contributions.
Right? You have to find the strong ones.
So it's not always the more you have. So if you have more,
You have
irrelevant-
to make sure that they are not collinear.
Yeah,
The
but
correlation
correlated
between them,
too strongly.
I defined it as those who lose us now, it's not too bad. If their collinearity is more than 0.3, I chose one of them. But this is arbitrary. Okay, and the main question of interest when we talk about a bias is the difference in the predictive value for confidence and for accuracy. And I will show you. Okay. So we can study effectively multiple cues that you can come up if you consider the task you chose. Some of these cues will be relevant to the task you chose as well. And you can come up with more and more cues that are already in the stimuli. Of course, you can design the stimuli to have variability in a particular aspect. For example, if you didn't have a rotation variability between the items, you can design some new items that will have. But many cues can be already in the stimuli. And I invite you to write to me if you have ideas for those tasks that I already have data. I will give you the data and examine your ideas in the existing data. And you can take your own data from the task you already collected data with metacognitive judgments and try to apply the method. Technical consideration with this particular task, just to give you an example how I address such a thing. With this particular task, people should manipulate pieces. This is very hard to program, takes a lot of response time for the manipulations to teach them how to use. This is not my kind of research. It's not the focus of my research. So in order to prevent this manipulation of pieces, I just invented a multiple choice test. What I did is I took the 7 pieces and generated a new set of silhouettes that always miss one piece. And the task now turns to be which piece is missing. So they just watch the silhouette, they don't manipulate anything, and they should indicate whether it's the smallest. I will show you. I had here, there is a legend. You see, this is called A, this is called B. We have 2 of B's, C, D, and E, and participants should just choose which letter represents the missing part. Okay?
So that increases the mood because they have to manipulate it mentally instead of physically.
Of course.
How does that affect the breathing?
This is the task I study. I don't task the other one, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I just invented this task to fit my research. Okay, so this is the task.
And the performance is sufficient.
Performance is between 50 and 60%, and this is the level I would like to have in order to allow overconfidence and variability in confidence. Mm-hmm. So I need challenging tasks. This is a requirement in order to study confidence. Okay, so they choose one of the letters and then write their confidence and measure response time as usual. Okay, and this is a new task.
So what is the average response time per task?
Between presentation of the figure and the click on one of the options. This is response time.
No, I'm just curious, how long does it take to solve a problem?
Up
Can
to
imagine.
1 minute.
Up to 1 minute.
Between half a minute and 1. Okay. Here you see the data from the first sample that just the basic state, 50% success rate, confidence is about 73%, so you see the overconfidence, but still there is room for variability. We don't have a ceiling effect. Overconfidence is the difference between the two. Response time here, the mean is 22 seconds. Okay, it answers your question. The lengthier, the most lengthy is 1 minute, typically. Efficiency, as I mentioned, I like to measure efficiency because when there are differences that are combined either in response time or success rate, I see it in efficiency. This is correct response per minute. So we have 1.6 correct response per minute. And resolution is the gamma correlation between confidence and success rate. It reflects the extent in which people discriminate between correct and incorrect solution. 0.41 is fine. It's robust, it's fine. They do discriminate. They do take confidence ratings into consideration. They do them in connection with the success rates. This is a good result that, again, allows for variability. Now I can start doing instructional design. I invite you to do instructional design and consider how it affects, we will see, the balance between the cues. We measure the cues like rotation and edges, etc., in this baseline state. And then we try to improve. There is a lot of room for improvement here. If you have ideas how to improve their success rate, we will try to implement that. And then we consider how it affects the cue utilization, the cues that are used for confidence. Okay? Here, the regression analysis that I will share the code, it's our code. I will share it happily with whoever would like to do it. So I entered 6 parameters, potential cues, and examined their predictive value for success and their predictive value for confidence. What we see here is that performance improved a little bit weekly, but significantly improved with experience without any feedback. But confidence was absolutely blind to this improvement. So this is one side of the dissociation. We see an effect on success with no effect on confidence. Positive here. Silhouette area. What is the centimeter, cube centimeter in the silhouette? We see a negative effect on success. The larger, the more difficult the task becomes. Nothing in confidence. Here we see rotated pieces. I told you, I counted how many items should be rotated. This had positive effect on success, and it was reflected properly without a bias. I examined the significance of the difference here. Here there was no significant difference, so it was applied properly for confidence. Perceived nameability, a negative effect, 0 here. Description length, can you name the object? Is it a rabbit? Is it a house? A little bit, a weak positive effect on success. No effect on confidence, but there was no significant difference between them. And response time had a negative effect, a weak negative effect on success, but strong negative effect on confidence. This is the opposite side of the bias. We see that confidence is overly sensitive to response time, above and beyond all other factors that affect success rate. And now we can look at figures that help us interpret each of the findings. I brought here some examples. Silhouette area. Silhouette area is defined by the missing piece. The given 7 pieces have all the same area for all the shapes that I took out. Did I take out the large triangle, the intermediate triangle, intermediate shapes, they have a parallelogram and a square, or the small triangle, and we see the bias that stems from each one of them, and we see that the small triangle generated the largest bias. So we can understand the source for the bias for confidence. We see confidence is blind. We see that confidence is similar for all these shapes, but success rate differs. And we see that how confidence doesn't reflect properly the changes in success rates given by the missing pieces. Yes, Erwin.
What I wonder is the response time, because I can imagine response time is also partly influenced by the cues you are using.
No, so this is a regression model. So controlling for all these, the rest of the variance explained by response time is this.
So you discount.
You control for all these variants.
Yeah.
And you have yet unexplained.
I see.
Yet unexplained variance in response time. This is what you see. And if you come up with 3 more cues, the role of response time will get smaller.
No, I get it.
Okay. So I encourage you to come up, bring me additional cues that I can analyze and add to this model. It will just.
Just to clarify, so this is the unexplained variance in response time that you put in the model.
Unexplained by those.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see in another. Yes, sorry.
Well, I don't know if this is like a weird question, but I'm keep wondering. So, if you know that the largest bias is caused by the small piece, what do we? How is that relevant? And so, what information does it?
It should inform you when you build instructional design.
Mm-hmm.
You should focus here rather than here.
Can you give a concrete example? So when is it relevant that I am, as a researcher, am aware that the small triangle is
Let's assume that you would like to improve our performance. We are your students and you have this task and you would like to teach us to do it better.
So only for this specific task, so not for...
Yes, for this.
Okay.
For this, I don't know how generalizable it is. But for now, let's improve performance, show instructional design that will improve. Where should I focus my efforts of instructional design? Not here, but here.
Yeah.
Here you have a lot of room for improvement and you have a large bias. So please focus here first.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time on this one, just improve this one first. Then you can continue and improve everything.
Yes.
It directs you to for instructional design, it directs you to the points in
the most urgent problems to solve.
Most urgent problems.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Another example, perceived nameability. I had another sample naming the silhouettes. Okay? And they named the silhouettes. This is the description length. I counted the words required for describing it, assuming that the shorter is more concrete. If I can say a rabbit, then it's more concrete. This was my prediction. And in addition, I had them write on a scale how nameable it is, whatever they understand. Okay? And this is the name of perceived nameability. How nameable or how easy it is to come up with a name for this figure. And it generated the bias. We see that success rate goes down as the nameability increases, which is surprising. And confidence goes up, but only a little, and it was not significant. But it's in opposite direction. So you see a large bias here and a small bias here. Eva, now you can try to understand what is the problem with those that are perceived as highly nameable. Why performance goes down here and confidence goes up, and performance is 50%, and here it's almost 60%. So maybe there is something here, or maybe you think it doesn't matter. I don't care about this. I don't know. Okay, but you should be aware and decide cleverly where to focus your efforts.
How do you then calculate whether this meets a bias pattern that the difference becomes bigger?
In the statistical model here, I compare the effects on success and to confidence as well within participant factor. And I have a significant difference. Here it's not, the gray font indicates non-significant, and the large font indicates significant. Yeah. And finally, response time. As I explained, response time is the rest of the variance. And here we see that the overconfidence here is larger than here, but it's not so pronounced. What we should know is the error bars here. There is much more noise in success rate, and confidence just reads response time and goes with response time in much more strict way than it is associated with success. So it's part of the measure that is stronger here is how noisy is the measure, okay? It's larger, the stronger negative correlation here means that there is less noise in the data. So confidence is very, very tightly related to response time, while success is not so tightly related. Okay, so this is another aspect. We see here overall double dissociation. We worked so hard in previous experiments to have one manipulation that changes confidence and another that changes success rate. But here, we just throw all ideas of cues into one regression and we see double dissociation. This is more strongly related to confidence. And these ones are more strongly correlated with success. And so we have a double dissociation already. So it's much easier. In one sample, with a lot of cues that we can come up, we see the double dissociation that we worked so hard in 2 experiments with particular manipulations. And now we have a way to do it much more effectively, much more efficiently in experimental design. Is it clear? Julia?
It is.
Okay. Importantly, as I mentioned already, data analysis can be done post-hoc. You can take already existing data sets, consider potential cues, and just try it and see whether you expose new biases that you can try to focus your efforts of instructional design on. An example, in this paper with the perimeter tasks, we had, no, it's not in the paper, it's in a thesis by one of my students. We had feedback. We had half of the items with feedback, thumb up, thumbs down, not any explanation of any kind. You did correctly or you did wrong. That's it. Half of the items there were feedback, and the other half they did as a test without feedback. And they improved, and it was nice because they overcame this perimeter area congruency bias. They were not misled by the area anymore, but because we examined a long list of cues, we identified that it generated other biases. So they improved in performance, but there were generated additional biases. So instructional design, we should be very careful from such situations that we harm another cue. Okay, so they improved from 50% to 65%. This is very impressive in success rate, but we would like to improve more. In order to improve more, we should overcome additional biases. So now we generated new biases. We have to overcome them in the next step of instructional design in order to improve further. Martina, what do you think?
I think that's it, right? It's super complex because it's not completely clear, especially with these types of problems, what participants think about it. And
It's not clear to them.
Yeah, also, they don't even know. It makes me think of really old work by Janet Metcalf and colleagues about the non-insight problem, the insight problem. I think some of these tasks might be similar, but some aren't. And it was a very simple finding, but they said, well, for the insight problems, people are not very capable of providing an accurate confidence judgment. And they didn't say anything about what happened, but you are. And I think that's really important and interesting. But it's also very complex because it's not the same. It's not the same information that apparently is important for performance. What they're using because of the association you showed.
Yes, but the confidence is what guides them to think more, to ask for help, to give up, to say, I don't know. It's the confidence that drives everything.
Yeah.
So you must be aware of the mismatch between success rate and confidence, because they behave by confidence.
Yeah.
And we have evidence that they behave by confidence with a correlation of above 0.9.
Yeah, because of also the overestimation you've shown a couple of slides.
Overestimation and variability that doesn't fit actual success. So the choices of action will follow confidence. And if there is a mismatch, there is a problem. Yeah, Julian.
Are you also interested in fostering performance on these tasks, for instance, via strategy instruction, and then look whether the bias changed?
Very much so.
You also do? Okay.
Very much so.
Okay.
Because that seems to work with some other complex tasks, some complex texts or some problem-solving tasks, but they were more stepwise, so different from these tasks. But still, if there are strategies that can help participants.
Of course, this is the reason I tell you all this.
Yeah. I thought maybe you wouldn't need the biases if you have a good strategy to. This would be my opinion, right?
If there are no biases at all, then you don't need it.
I see the self-regulation thing, of course, but maybe if you just tell the learners to, for instance, you have to count the I don't know.
I tried in this paper, which is under review, I tried to explain how to count the parameters. It reduced some of the biases, but did not overcome them all. So instead of 6 biases, they had 2 biases. This is an improvement. They improved in success rate as well.
And you would be happy
this
if
is in the paper.
You would be happy if they would perform perfectly accurate on the task and still underestimate the performance would be fine for you, right? Because I'm more interested in
if
task
they
performance.
Underestimate consistently across the
maybe if it's a perfect strategy and they perform well, feeling effect, this wouldn't matter in this case. Okay. No.
This is not a problem.
I just want to understand what your goal is. So, okay.
Yes, I want to improve performance. My way in order to improve performance is to improve the relevance or the reliability of confidence. In order to improve performance.
That's one way, of course. Okay. Thanks.
We have something similar in our diagram where the issue is, do you just tell them what the right cue is, or do you actively help them reject the wrong cue and what is needed? So in some situations, you just don't want to talk about the wrong cue because it might even more bias them, and in others you have
to examine it.
Yeah, you can, and it doesn't turn out to
compare the two with such a method and see what effect it does on the cue utilization.
But it's taxing also for them, so it's not that it's simple to get an effect of one or the other. So the instructional design part of it also is another line of research.
Of course, this is your work. Of course, I contribute my bit, but I just give you the.
Have you ever tried to incorporate the self-perception cues? I mean, it's tricky because maybe if you ask them how good are you at it, then it becomes a dominant cue. And if you ask them afterwards,
I have at the end of the tasks of my old tasks, I ask how much experience you have with problems, or how much do you solve puzzle type of problems.
But then how good do you think you are at it? Because that would mean, because it could be that that is even explaining more of the variance than.
I also ask how many items do you think a global judgment of learning, a weighted judgment of confidence,
Yeah.
how many items, if it's useful for you, you can get the data.
Yeah, I like these studies by Ehrling also, where we gave them a sort of a pre-task, an easy one or a difficult one, and that primed them to think that they were good at the task, sort of poor at the task, and that led to huge overlapping with the rest of the components. So this self-perception aspect, I believe,
Absolutely,
is a
absolutely.
big thing. And I wonder how it compares to the task-related factors.
Go ahead. Check. Yeah.
So that's why.
Yes, go ahead.
No, just, I was just wondering, that's something I'm really keen on.
No, but this is the kind of directions I encourage you to take.
Yeah,
Take
that's why
whatever task you like
But I'm wondering.
and get delving into it. Delve into the cues and the instructional design and individual difference and self-perception and all these, how they affect success rate and the cue utilization for confidence. Yes, Eva.
So your assumption is that if they have low confidence in an inaccurate task performance, that they are aware so that they will try to do better.
I don't assume.
Because that's why you want to improve their.
At least they will be aware and then they can decide whether they are motivated to improve.
Okay, yeah.
But they still can decide that this is enough, 50% is fine.
Yeah.
I don't assume that they are motivated to improve.
But it's the reason why you want.
If they are motivated to improve, then
Yeah. Then they.
acknowledging their lack of knowledge should encourage them to overcome it.
But in this case, lower confidence would be even better for you, right? Because
This is tricky.
it's tricky because they might stop
In
that.
learning, this was my prediction, like 12 years ago with the screen versus paper. If anybody is familiar with my line of research, learning text from screen versus paper.
Yeah.
At that time, I thought that people will be underconfident on screen. And this what motivated my research, but it was not the case. They were more overconfident on screen rather than less. It was very fruitful mistake in prediction. Okay, so we succeed in overcoming the major biasing factor here that was predicted by previous research. So we should understand the pros and cons, what damage might be caused because of our instructional design, not only the advantages. Okay, so we have now 20 minutes, right? Yeah. So I encourage you to work in your pairs and design with the task you choose, or another one. Design a study that allows you to identify cues and overcome biases. And I'm here to answer questions, and of course I'm here available and by email later as well. So please allow the time, 20 minutes now, to think about it.
Okay. What study are we doing?
I would like to stop now and get some ideas that people come up with and see whether we can learn from them, improve them, think about them further. Go ahead, Eva.
Okay, so Julian and I thought of the Raven matrices task, and we thought of some factors that might affect success rate and confidence differently. And one factor that we thought of was maybe coloring the vertical versus the horizontal boxes.
Mm-hmm. Like
Yeah.
same color for a line.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we thought maybe that would improve performance because maybe it's easier, but we're not sure.
Attention should be to the lines then.
Yeah.
The grouping factor will be the line if the color the same color. So people will be more conscious of the line rule
Yeah.
than the column rule.
Yeah.
Is it for the good or for the bad? What do you think?
What did
The
you
rules
think?
are both in the lines and in the columns, but the idea here is to color. Very interesting. I
Yeah.
don't know what to
No.
predict. What to predict? What do you think? What you would predict? Helpful.
We would guess like maybe it would improve success rate, but not confidence. That people would not maybe be blind in their confidence that it was helping them, or
Wow, amazing. And then you should have another group with the
Yeah.
columns or within subjects.
maybe within subjects. So vary the tasks using colors or not.
Colors or not, or columns or lines.
Lines are not and columns are not, two factors, right? Oh, yeah, maybe.
You cannot do both though.
Yeah, we have
Both.
We do everything.
Yes,
Yeah.
it will be very messy.
Welcome to our study.
Okay.
Yeah, we have some others. So maybe if you increase the size of boxes, so here there are 9 boxes in each thing, but you can also increase it to 16, and then maybe it becomes more complex. So that maybe confidence might be blind.
It's more complex on one in the load of stimuli,
Mhm.
but it will be easier to identify the rules maybe if there is more information.
Yeah.
Interesting, very interesting.
And it might depend on whether it's within or between subjects. So we see the difficulty level.
Also
Then their
a good
confidence
question.
is down.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
notice how
Confidence
automatic
is
they are.
very sensitive to within subject manipulations. So
Yeah.
Yeah, they
more
they
than
can
between
trust,
subject manipulations.
Yeah, yeah, difficulty is a strong cue.
Yes. So write a program, a research program. It's interesting.
And we're not finished yet.
Okay. Additional ideas about the Raven matrices? How to affect either confidence or success rate? What cues are there already in the
Yeah,
chat?
we thought of new cues. For example, the size of the boxes, if you increase it, maybe people will think it become easier, but their performance will not.
Yes.
And we also thought of, would it matter if they have like multiple choice answering options or free response? So they really have to think of themselves.
I've never saw such a test in an open-ended, but it's possible. So just they have to draw.
Yeah.
Then to analyze the drawing, it will be crazy. Okay.
And then we end with response time as the
course. Yes, it's worthwhile doing always. Right, thank you. Additional teams that would like to share the ideas? No brave teams? Okay, so we close in just a minute. Thank you, slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So those who want to have another look